Want to talk a little bit about abortion news because I've been following lots and lots of. That's one thing that I always want to follow is what's going on in the world. With abortion ever since Roe v. Wade was, overturned, and 50% of the women in this country lost the right to bodily autonomy. I always want to keep track of that and keep current with everything that's happening with abortion because I think that is one of the biggest travesties of justice. The fact that our Supreme Court, on ideological grounds, just overturned 50 years of precedent simply because of the fact that they are, because it goes against their religious beliefs. I think that is a major, major, major travesty of justice, and I want to keep myself activated and active on things that I can do and informed so that I can make proper decisions and try to help people. So, what's going on with abortion? The latest thing I've heard here, and this is ridiculous. I think you guys may like this one. Let's turn on my main laptop window. Okay, this is from NPR. Idaho lawmakers pass bill to prevent minors from leaving the state for abortion. So, let me go ahead and put this down in the chat for any of you guys who want to check that out later on your own. I was going to kind of just sum this up, but I think it might be prudent for us to just read this article. Right. Because it's pretty informative. So, Idaho, of course, is a state which has criminalized abortion. I think they have a provision for rape or incest, and then also if the mother's life is in danger. Right. But let's just read what's going on here. Okay. After clearing both legislative chambers, Idaho could become the first state in the country, according to Planned Parenthood, to criminally charge those who help pregnant minors get an abortion across state lines without parental consent. See, that's the thing when it comes to all of this stuff, folks. It's always about, the first step they do is to control the behavior of minors, because minors in this country actually don't have rights. You don't have rights. If you're not 18 years old, if you're not an adult, your parents control you. Your parents get to say what you do and you can't do. Right? Your parents get to say how you do everything in your life, up to and including how you dress, where you go to school, what you are and aren't allowed to have. Even if, for example, like the property that you have, that doesn't belong to you if you're a minor, it belongs to your parents. So if you are, for example, a child actor and you make a shitload of money, that money belongs to your parents. They can just take it anytime they feel like because they're your legal guardians and you don't have a choice. How many stories have you heard of child actors, like Gary Coleman or something, or whatever, going out and being superstars, and then their parents just spending all their money and them not getting jack shit, and then when they grow up, they're like, destitute. How many times have you heard of that happening? That's because as a minor, you don't have rights. You don't have also a right to privacy, which is what, that's what Roe v. Wade was all about. Well, you don't have that right when you're a minor. Your parents get to legally go through all of your shit. They can go through any emails that you've sent, any private messages on any platform, that because it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to your parents, right? Any property you may own, if you, get a job and you work really hard and you buy a car, that car doesn't belong to you. Your parents can just take it away. Take it away anytime they feel like, and that's what it's like when you're a minor. You don't really have rights in this country when you're a minor. You don't have right to bodily autonomy. You don't have shit. You can't decide anything, right? So now, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I'm not making a judgment here. I personally think it's bad. I think minors should have some kind of rights, some amount of say in what they do when they what they want to do. Right. Maybe not as many as adults. Maybe as if you're the parent, maybe you do get a final say or something like that. But That's what's going on here. So, but this is how the conservatives and the neo-fascists in our government, how they always want to enact their ever creeping fascist takeover of every aspect of our lives is that they start with minors because no one objects when you take away the rights of minors. Right. If convicted, the penalty could be 2 to 5 years prison under the bill passed in the Idaho Senate Thursday. Neighboring Oregon, Montana, Washington, and Wyoming currently allow abortions with varying levels of restrictions. That's not entirely true. Wyoming abortion is technically legal, but there are no places for anyone to get a surgical abortion. All of the abortion clinics have basically been shut down. They've been run out of town in Wyoming. And now they're trying to pass a bill. So there's one clinic left that offers chemically induced abortions in Wyoming. And they're trying to pass a bill in order to make it illegal to use the two drugs that are commonly used for chemically induced abortions. So that was one of the things we talked about last week and the week before, was this sort of push across multiple red states in order to ban those drugs. If they do ban it in Wyoming, which I don't think they actually have yet, but if they do, then that means abortion will be de facto unavailable in Wyoming. Even though the law says it's okay, there will be no place in Wyoming where anyone can get an abortion. So, states' rights, folks. They told us it was states' rights, and then now they're taking away the rights from the states. Republican State Senate Scott Henderson supported the bill but wanted it to go further. Neither parent nor guardian should be allowed protection from trafficking a minor for purposes of an abortion outside of the state, Hendren said Thursday. So that's the guy that created the bill, right? That did this bill actually pass? Yes, it did. It passed, right? So that's the guy that created the bill. The guy that made his own bill doesn't think that his bill is strict enough. The guy that did it, you know, thinks that it should be legal to throw the parent of a child, in prison for making medical decisions for that child. Right. See, because that's the thing. It's like when it comes to fascists, they don't actually care about rights. Fascists don't care about your rights. Remember that. Fascists do not care about your rights. They care about imposing their will on you, right? And it's never about what's best for the individual, best for the parent, best for the child, or even what's best for society. It's never about that when fascists pass laws. When Christian neoconservatives, or even Christian conservatives and neo-fascists and dominionists, right, of all stripes, the law to them is just a tool that they can use to enforce their will upon you, where they can enforce what they want at the expense of what you want, right? And it doesn't matter if you don't believe in their religion. It doesn't matter if you don't believe in their whatever, right? It doesn't matter. They're going to enforce it on you. You will follow the tenets of their religion, and if you don't like it, they'll use the law to throw you in jail. And that's what this is, right here. Supporters call the potential crime abortion trafficking, something state minority leader Melissa Wintrow, a Democrat who has worked with sexual assault survivors for decades, said cheapens the experience of human trafficking victims forced into slavery or prostitution. And it does. Wintrow also said it doesn't account for minors who are raped because pregnant by their fathers who aren't able to safely tell law enforcement. It is unnecessary and unneeded and further shackles young girls who are in trouble, Wintrow said, adding, and then it harms the parents' friends, the relatives, etc., who are trying to help her. Exactly. Because if your parent is the person who gets to decide whether you get an abortion or not, well, if it just happens that your parent is the one that impregnated you in the first place, stands to reason that they're not going to try to help you get an abortion. Also stands to reason that just you even asking as a pregnant child that can throw you into further trouble, further abusive situations. So what's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is that all of the teenage girls who are getting abused and raped by their fathers are going to end up having, you know, either one of two things. They're either going to have sort of back alley illegal abortions in which they're going to die, right? The number of deaths will go up because if they're doing it in some place that isn't clean with a guy that doesn't know what they're doing, it can easily lead to major complications and deaths, and that's what used to happen all the time before we legalized abortion in this country, with Roe v. Wade. The other thing that's going to happen is you're going to start seeing orphanages start piling up again. You're going to start seeing girls being shipped off to covenants and stuff like that, and giving birth in secret. You're going to start seeing the illegitimate black sheep of the child that is born in the house and no one ever knows where they came from. Right. And you're going to see lots and lots of child abuse. You're going to see children being abandoned, being left in dumpsters, things like that. Illegitimate children being infants being left in dumpsters, that kind of thing. These are all problems that, we had in this country for years and we still do have, but they were exasperated in the past. They were far higher in the past when women could not get legal abortions, when people were not allowed to plan their families, when young women you know, didn't have bodily autonomy, right? But, it's not about what actually helps people, it's about enforcing your will. Remember that. Idaho already has some of the strictest abortion laws. Idaho currently only allows the procedure to be performed in cases of rape, incest, or if the mother would die without one. Thursday legislatures clarified certain instances when a mother's life is in jeopardy, but that change still needs approval from the Republican governor, Brad Little. State law also allows family members and their father of an aborted fetus to file civil lawsuits against doctors who perform an abortion outside of those exceptions for $20,000 per violation. So, not only will a doctor go to jail, but if a doctor actually does they have that same sort of bounty hunter law that you have in Texas, where you can just turn people against each other. If you can't enforce the law, then I like that sort of new thinking on the conservative Republican side. It's like, if we can't enforce this law, we'll just use people's greed to our advantage, right? Everybody hates this law and it's bullshit, but there's going to be greedy people out there that will go out there and force it for us because they want that 20 grand. Shit like that should be illegal, you know. This is the same like in Texas. That bounty hunter law in Texas is that you can sue anyone that even participated in someone getting an abortion. Like, you can sue the Uber driver. You can sue the guy that owns the gas station where they stopped to get gas. You can sue the dude who sells the woman a sandwich. Right? You can sue the parking attendant at the hospital. You can sue all the people involved in getting an abortion. Anyone who aided or abetted or whatever gave any type of material assistance to that abortion happening, you can sue them, right? And that's basically what this is. It's using people's greed to enforce a law that the majority of the people hate, because they know that most people don't give a shit about abortion. Most people either support abortion or are indifferent of abortion. That is consistent in every state in this country. Even in the red states, it's something like there's a majority of people want abortions. Even in Idaho, the majority of people either are indifferent or support abortion, right? They know that, so they know that there's a big incentive for people to just look the other way or just to not care or to not enforce it. So in order to ensure that they are able to enforce their will on everybody, they are focusing they're exploiting greed, right? And we're already seeing it happening. There's already cases in Texas where there was one that I just saw where this guy is suing his ex-wife for getting an abortion, and it's like it wasn't even his kid, right? He's suing her because she got an abortion that was like someone else's baby, like most unconstitutional shit ever. And that is really, I mean, if you're looking for examples of how our Supreme Court is compromised, right? How their ideology has compromised them, and that they're no longer a legitimate court. It's the fact that they allow that law to stand. The Supreme Court specifically, like, did not take that up. Said, yeah, let's let it play out for a little, right? That's the most unconstitutional fucking thing ever. Right? You can't just sue. The whole idea behind a lawsuit is that the person instigating the suit has to like prove damages. How the fuck are you damaged by somebody else getting an abortion? That has nothing to do with you. And is it your child? Is this your ex-wife? Is this your wife that with your child? No. Right? Is this your girlfriend aborting your child? No. So what grounds do you have? How are you damaged? Right? But the fact they just let that stand. It's the most ridiculous shit ever. So now it's got to wind its way through the courts before it gets back up to the Supreme Court, and then they're just going to uphold it anyway, right? Because Christians don't have integrity. They don't. Conservative, evangelical, Christo-fascists do not have integrity, and they don't give a shit about the letter of the law, right? They only care about enforcing their will on everyone else. Okay, so anyway, wanted to put this out here. Um, so this bill is now going to governor. So the bill passed the Senate, and it's now going to be signed by the governor. And yes, I give it a 90% chance that he signs this bill. Right. So just remember this particular bill criminalizes someone who drives a minor to the border, right? So it's not crossing the border. You don't even have to cross the border. If you just drive her to the border and then she crosses on her own, that's what it criminalizes, right? Which this is one of those things that's like, how are you going to prove that? I mean, but it could have a big problem. Let's go ahead and turn this off for now, right? It could have a big problem. Let's say that you are what's a good, let's say that you are a older sibling, right? And your younger sister or something gets raped, but nobody believes her, right? Or something like that. Or for whatever reason, or just let's not even say that. Let's just say that she, loses her virginity and ends up getting, your little sister who's 14 or whatever, right? And then ends up getting pregnant, and you come from a super conservative Christian household, and if your parents find out, they're going to beat the crap out of her, so you decide to take her across the state line. You could be going to jail for 2 years for that, for doing something that, remember, was 100% legal, like less than a year ago. Less than a year in every state in this country. All of these things were 100% legal. Now we have all of these people getting criminalized, getting thrown in jail for doing shit that was 100% legal not that long ago, right? And also doing something which is 100% legal in the state, which is 20 miles away from them. That it shouldn't be like that, right? You shouldn't be going to jail in one state for doing shit that is completely legal in another state. It's like, no, no, it's important to have consistency in our laws like this, right? Like, I mean, we shouldn't have like underground railroads of people like escaping tyranny like that. Because that's what that is. If you think about that, like, you know, this is I really think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to start seeing things like, you know, oh, you need an abortion, call this guy. And then, they'll drive you to another state or whatever, right? And it'll be like some people that, all clandestine and stuff like that. And you got to keep it hush hush. And it won't, kind of like the Underground Railroad, kind of like during, with like Harriet Tubman and all that, how they would smuggle slaves out of the country so that they can be free. Like, That's not that big of a difference. Like, why are we allowing shit like this to happen in the first place? You know, I mean, it's like, okay, yes, you need to vote. You need to vote. If you want to stop this kind of stuff from happening, you have to be politically active. But it doesn't end with voting. You have to use every tool in your box, right? Voting is one tool. Protesting is another tool. Direct actions are another tool. And what do I mean by direct actions, right? Say, like what I just mentioned, setting up a support system so that, young women who need it can get the abortions they need. Which is, I would say, the way to do that is set up groups on the internet, Facebook groups, things like that. Using social media, right? And you keep it, you make sure that the people that run it don't live in the state where the shit's criminalized. And it's like, you call this number, we come pick you up, right? And there's risk whenever you do something like that. That's, you're purposely breaking the law, right? And there's risks involved in that. And you should be ready to go to jail if you're going to do that. If you're going to be the kind of person that purposely breaks a law like this in order to help somebody get an abortion, you should go to prison. Yeah, I mean, not go to prison, but you should be prepared to go to prison. And that actually should be part of the strategy because you want to get court cases out there, right? You want court cases out there to challenge the law because the courts are another tool in the shed. So it's like, that's how you fight it, right? It has to come from, but it has to come from us because nobody's gonna. It'll never change unless we do it. I mean, that's how abortion got legalized in the first place, using those methods, right? Through voting, through protesting, through direct action, through court cases. That's how it was legalized. It was legalized through a court case, right? In the first place. That's what we need to do, And I don't know if that's against, if me advocating that we should purposely break the law is against the Twitch's or YouTube's terms of service. It may be. I don't care. It's the right thing, you know. Non-violently, of course, is what I'm saying. Non-violently protesting. That is a legitimate form of protest where you break the law on purpose non-violently in order to challenge the law, right? And I don't think that should be against the rules to talk about. So I don't know. Report me if you want, people. Lewis the Hedgehog, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining. We do things to kids all the time that if you were to do an adult would get your ass whooped. Exactly, we do. Children don't have rights. Like I said earlier they don't, and we force children to do things that you would never force an adult to do. We restrict children from things, which yeah, there are things that children should not be allowed to do, right? Buy alcohol and shit like that, or you know, date people who are like old enough to be their parents, right? Date adults. They should not be allowed to do that. That kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, okay, some of those restrictions are needed, right? Other restrictions, not so much. Like, I personally think if you're a child and if you have a job and that money that you earn should belong to you, and you should have the ability to, first off, not only just open a bank account, because children can't open bank accounts without their parents, right? That's just not allowed. That you just have to have. So I really think there should be a method by which a minor, like who say someone who's 15, 16, gets a job, should be allowed to open their own bank account that their parents can't access. I really think that should be a thing, right? I really think children need some semblance of privacy, right? Like I just did a video up on YouTube now where I'm talking. They in Utah they made it so that minors aren't allowed to use social media. They passed this. This passed. It's going to be enacted like in July. Minors are who don't have their parents' permission are not allowed to use social media. I think that's a load of shit, right? Like since when? Like why? You know, what kind of fucking shit is that? Like you're just not allowed to open one without your like. It's a social media. I don't know. It's bullshit. And it's like yes, okay, there are lots of reasons why children shouldn't be on social media, right? Well, there's lots of reasons why adults shouldn't be on social media either. But we allow that, you know. So all this is going to do is just, all it does is it further allows children, parents who abuse their children to have a tighter control over them, right? It just further restricts the ability for children to seek help or to like, seek any kind of like escape from abusive households, right? And not only just abusive households, but just abusive like living situations in general, you know. Say you're a kid and you live in a small town and everyone in your town is super fucking conservative and you're like, not even you don't even have to be gay or trans or something. Let's just say that you're just not like a fucking conservative, right? And you want, or let's say you live like in Utah, right? Utah is super religious, and let's say you're an atheist, right? And that can be, I mean, yeah, you can get abused for that too, right? Like if you live in a super conservative area and and you don't, and you even just not believing in God is something that can get you abused, not just by your parents, but by other people out, can get you ostracized, right? From your community and stuff like that. And if you don't have, anyone in your waking daily meat space life that you can like talk to or confide in, well, where do you find those people? You find them on the internet, right? And please keep in mind that the whole reason like that thing even happened with the banning kids from social media, like it really doesn't have, the motives behind that is not to keep children safe from child predators. That's not the motive. The motive is to keep children away from like gay people and trans people. That's what it is, and to keep them from organizing on the internet, right? That's really what it is. The youth vote in this last election, like in 2020, really kind of decided the election. I mean, why do you think they're trying to ban TikTok now? It's because young people were using it to spread around, to organize and to spread around memes and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, so basically what they're saying is, well, the conservatives are going, we need to remove the ability for young people to, to organize and to spread ideology, right? That's what it is. And it's not going to work. That's the ultimate thing about all that, about the social media ban. Not going to work at all. So it's just bullshit that will make joining social media a pain in the ass for everybody, right? Because now they're going to have to do all this age verification shit. I read the law. There's like provisions in there requiring ID, stuff like that. I just hope that I just hope that since I don't live in Utah, that they can somehow detect that and they don't force, I hope they don't force other people who don't live in that state to fucking go through that, jump through hoops for shit like that, because that's bullshit. Anyway, that was a little bit of a side. Lisa Hedgehog, what do you say to those who say they're simply preventing murders for the abortion thing? I say, fuck you. That's what I say. Right? I'm serious. I'm kind of done with that. I'm done with that debate, right? Because this is always what the debate's been. Well, you're murdering fetuses. Go fuck yourself. That's We're done with that. A fetus is not a human being. Okay, like a zygote, a fetus. Even let's just say like a fetus that's like 6 weeks old. It's got a heartbeat, all that shit. It's not a human being, right? And here's the thing about it, okay? If I saw that conservatives cared about children, then that would disarm that argument from me. But conservatives don't care about children. Christians don't care about children. They don't. They don't give a fuck about children at all, right? They want the child to be born, but they don't want to give any support for that child afterwards at all in the slightest, right? They don't want to provide education for that child. They don't want, conservatives, the official stance of the GOP in this country, they don't want public education at all, right? They don't want any kind of food assistance, SNAP, anything like that at all. They don't want to do anything if the kid is sick. They don't want to do anything to educate the child. They don't want to do anything to keep the child out of poverty at all. No welfare, no nothing. They don't want. So it's fine. They just want the kid to be born, and they don't care if the kid's stupid and sickly and living in the gutter as long as the kid's born, because apparently that's what God likes or some shit. And I'm sick of this shit. It's like, no, they're not murdering. And here's the other thing about that, right? Like, Christians didn't even give a fuck about abortion until what? You know, what, the 70s? They didn't give a fuck about abortion, right? It was a Catholic thing. Catholics cared about abortions. Conservative, evangelical, Christian Protestants didn't give a fuck about abortion at all, right? It was a way that they saw that they could organize the religious right into a political force. See, that back in the day, we didn't have the religious right. Like, they didn't vote to the same numbers that they did there now, right? Because in the Bible, it doesn't actually say that you're supposed to do that. In the Bible, it says you're supposed to live apart from the world, right? The Bible says you are supposed to support secular authorities, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, right? And that's how they lived back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And it wasn't until like I think it was early 1970s when the whole moral majority thing came around, right? When the conservative Republicans realized that they could mobilize the evangelicals and the Baptists and the Protestants in this country of all stripes, when they realized that they could motivate them and win elections with them, and they said, well, how are we going to do it? And then you started seeing preachers and shit talking about abortion and using abortion as an issue. So this is not a thing that, it's not like you can go back to, like, the early 20th century and see anti-abortion. No, 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 no. It's just kind of like an invented thing, and now it's like, what, 40 years later, it's one of the pillars of conservatism is anti-abortion. It's fucking such bullshit, right? It's total fucking bullshit. It doesn't even conform with their own fucking religion. Why is it that, like, atheists and shit always know more about religion than the actual religious people? Why is that? Now even the Vatican is pro-choice. Exactly. Right? Like, what the fuck is the problem? Exactly. The Vatican is pro-choice now. So, Catholics in this country should be shutting the fuck up. If you're a Catholic in this country, then you believe, if you're a Catholic in general, I guess, not just in this country, you're supposed to believe that the Pope is the basically right hand of God, that the Pope is a prophet and is God incarnate on this earth, and what comes out of the Pope's mouth is divinely inspired. That you're supposed to believe that when you're Catholic. So if the fucking Pope is telling you that abortion is fine, that means God is okay with abortion, right? So why the fuck are the Catholics why do we have 4 Catholics on the Supreme Court outlawing abortion? They don't even listen to their own religion. That's the real ridiculous thing about it, right? Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.